Welcome back. I hope you're listening to these wonderful, wonderful teachings of Jesus. Mark 10. I'm going to read this at this point. Let's get right into what Jesus' answer was to these Pharisees who were trying to trap him here. All right, so he asked, remember, what did Moses command you? And they quoted basically Deuteronomy 24, verses 1 through 4. Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce and send her away. It's always a man at that time. It's a patriarchal society where the man was the one that was more thought of a lot of times. God changed that, by the way, through Old Testament and New Testament. Kept working against the grain of that and equalized women. Women were vulnerable at this time. Like once you divorced, if they're put away, they didn't have a safety net. Now they could go back to their families, but they're adults now. And so what do you do? And sometimes it led them into the wrong way, into the wrong type of person, with other men, and just really bad. So that's why God set up a divorce thing where she can be protected there. But God didn't really want that. And that's what Jesus did. Listen to what he said. He said, first of all, Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce and send her away. That's what they said. And then he said it was because your hearts were hard that he did that. It wasn't really that way. See, sinfulness of people, God allowed a lot of sinful stuff that wasn't his plan because people were just sinful. And so he allowed leniency. The Bible says he winked, kind of overlooked a lot of sins, even though they were doing wrong. And they couldn't be as perfect as we can now when Christ comes into us, but we'll get to that later. My point is, Jesus' point is that their hearts weren't soft, tender, loving, kinds. They were selfish. And they got hurt, and then they hurt back, and the vicious arguments that are really horrible. And so God said, well, I'm going to allow you to divorce because there's no peace at all in that, no harmony, and it was just rough. And he said, well, I'll allow you to divorce. It's not God's will. So let's go back to God's will. Let's do it right. And you can too, child. So we'll get into that later. I'm coming up sooner. I want you to listen to these videos and show you some tips and keys on how you can keep from having all this mess that families have. These guys know it, right? They have a lot of wisdom. It's important to listen to the wisdom of elders and people who have made mistakes and listen to them and take their advice. It says it was because your hearts were hard that Moses wrote you this law. Jesus replied, but at the beginning of creation, God made them. And he goes into two passages. First, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, and then also Genesis chapter 2. He quotes two verses right here. I think it's 2:24, or maybe, I don't know, I could look it up, but that's okay. So he says, I like this. I happen to think of this song from Sound of Music. I love that wonderful story of these children and that nun. Let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. And then do, re, mi. Well, this is what Jesus said. Let's start at the beginning and find out what God intended. What was his plan, purpose, his design, his program? What did he see? And if you see what he sees and you see the purposes of creation, the creation of marriage, because he set it up, marriage was his idea, you do it his way, it becomes really wonderful. Marriage is just fantastic. I will say that one of the major reasons, and probably the major reason, that God really wanted marriage for most couples, not necessarily all of them, was to have kids. And I've got a boatload of these kids right here. Can you see these guys right here? It's their kids. They all have I think three. I think they all have 3 kids and all. But see, this is their kids right here. And if you do it right, then the kids are safe in a boat. They feel comfortable. It's really good. There's a father and a mother. And by the way, he said he created a male and female. He didn't create a man to have a man. That's really different than what the world is trying to teach. Remember the world's ways. And a woman to have a kid. Friendships are great, but not marriage. God didn't set it that way. Look at it very carefully. And he made an Adam and Eve, and he made to have kids. And if you wonder if that's really the purpose of marriage, I thought it was to love each other and all that. Sure, that's part of it. But the Bible says it in Malachi chapter 2. It says the reason he had them become one flesh is to have godly offspring, to have kids. God wanted kids. He's a father. Fathers are very important. Mothers are too. Oh man, both are equally important. But he's a father, and he wanted children. He wants you to be born again into his family. He wants to adopt you into his family. He wants to put his nature within you. He wants to come in and be close to you and make you his son or daughter. That's why he created everything, by the way. That's Malachi chapter 2. So all these kids right here are loved by their parents. They're all Christians too. Well, the little ones have to become Christians or not. We have babies in here and all that. I love this group. And basically, there's a safety and there's a wonderful protection by doing it right for kids. Nowadays, it's all messed up. Not all, but so many families, they divorce and then you have to go on weekends with this person, and maybe some of you are like that. It's okay. Just look to the Father, look to God, love your parents, go walk through it, and don't do it that way when you get older. And they would say the same thing, you know. But anyway, here's what the purpose of marriage is he made them one flesh. That one flesh is actually meaning just in one word, one. It means oneness. They become one. They become one in spirit and soul and body and everything. They actually connect together, and boy, it's a beautiful, awesome relationship with each other. And basically, one completes the other. If you remember, woman, I'll take this beautiful couple here. Woman was taken out of Adam's rib. He was down here, and he took the rib and put him to sleep and created the beautiful woman right here. Okay, so, and then there it is, bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. They're actually one, and they complete each other, and they're supposed to cleave to each other, which he goes on and says. Let me read on to this passage here. So I love this here. Yeah, I love this couple. Anyway, so where were we? Oh, let me get the Bible again and read on. This is good. Now hang in there. Listen to it. This is the intention of God. This is what he designed for, and this is how it's supposed to be. Because of your hearts are hard. That's why most divorces happen, because someone's heart is hard, and maybe both of them. Keep them soft to each other. It was because your hearts were hard that Moses wrote you this law. But at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Okay? For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother. So these kids, I'll just pick one real quick. This guy right here, this is his kid. When he becomes older, ready to marry, I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. I'm out of here. He goes and marries, and now they start a family. That's how it's supposed to be. It's simple. But, you know, that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to leave, which means they're no longer the first in his life. He honors them, he obeys them until the point where he's an adult, and now he's honoring them for the rest of his life, but he is now with his wife, and he's not over their jurisdiction, and they raise their kids, and that's how it's supposed to be. If you do it right, if everyone would just follow God's plan, this earth would be completely different. All right, but anyway, it says here, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Okay, there it is. And that word one in the Hebrew means united. So it's two but one. By the way, it's also a picture of Jesus and the Father. There's two, but they're also united in one. There's one. They become literally one flesh in a very mysterious sense, but it's true. So they are no longer two but one. Okay, so if they're one, God set it up where they become one. You think he wants them to split away, that all of a sudden they tear that apart? No, because God wanted them to become one flesh. One till death do us part, to the end of their lives. He says, therefore, what God has joined together, God joined them. God did it. It's a supernatural thing that's happening in marriage. And it says, let man not separate. Don't divide them. Quit cutting them, severing them asunder, cutting them in two, pulling this couple away from each other. They're supposed to cleave together right here. They're supposed to be together and not ripped apart. And it rips them apart, and now you got the kids to have to deal with, and it's just a lot of pain. And there's a way of doing it where you don't have to. So God doesn't really like divorce at all. Although it's, there's times it happens because of hardness of hearts. But see, if you're a disciple of Jesus, if you're really committed to Christ, and you marry somebody who's committed to Christ, there's no way you're going to marry someone that's not committed to Christ. It's ridiculous. Light doesn't have fellowship with darkness and all that. So if you're together with the right person, like these guys did it, and people in the world do it, there's couples like that, then it becomes just wonderful. Now, do they have problems? Do they ever argue? Do you ever argue? Yep, you all do. See them shaking their heads? Yeah, but they work through that. And if you're submitted to God and your heart is putting Him, Lord, that triangle that we talked about last time, God being at the top and the man and woman right here, then you follow Him and do it His way and love each other and forgive and work through your problems and be patient with each other, etc., etc. It works. Then it says, when they were in the house again, the disciples asked Jesus about this. So we'll get into that coming up here. But I hope you got what I'm trying to say here. What God is saying is God put them together, and if you think of it that way, then you don't plan on ever having a divorce. Who plans on that? But there's a possibility of you actually living it out for the rest of your life. Millions of couples have done that. Millions of them, even under intensity, even under difficulty. And difficulty is because a lot of times people are selfish inside and they have to work through that. You don't know how selfish you are until you get married. But it's really important. And in the midst of all of this, God does forgive. He doesn't just kick you out and all that. And if you did divorce, it's not the unpardonable sin where you can't get pardon if you divorce. God forgives, but it's not His intention. He doesn't want it. And He doesn't want you to fall into the trap of deciding which one. Don't go with Hillel. Don't go with, although Shammai was more accurate. Jesus was tested, and I even mentioned Antipas in the video, like they were testing him and trying to trap him. And the point is the devil likes to trap you, hurt you in your relationships and all that. And it's super sad. So I'm going to end there because, there's a lot and I could go on, but I hope you got something out of this. That's kind of the heart of it. The heart of the Bible here teaches that God intended from the very beginning. Let's start at the very beginning. Is find out what God's design was, follow that design and that plan, and you become one, and then you're with God and all that, and then with His help, you will have a wonderful marriage in your life. All right, thanks for listening.